Join me in welcoming Mr. David Studinski.
Thank you very much, Dean Lavery. Good morning, Ball State. Well, somewhat of a good morning, apparently, it seems. It's great to be here with you. Congratulations on your accomplishment. It is no small feat. I am very humbled and honored to be up here with you today. On Thursday, the world stopped to remember the horrific attacks on our nation 13 years ago. This is timely to us this week. You saw a lot of footage from the National September 11th Memorial and Museum in Lower Manhattan. It's a beautiful, emotional place. While I did not have direct ties to the 2,977 people who lost their lives that day, I, as a New Yorker, as a human being, feel that it's my duty to make sure that their memories live on and that the feeling of the post-9/11 world is completely understood in context. Because of that, I've had the honor to serve as a docent in the National September 11th Memorial and Museum since it opened in May. For the past 2 years, I've served as a guide on the Memorial Plaza. My job as a docent is to tell the institutional story of 9/11 using the artifacts in the space. In all this time, I've explained the collapse of the towers, fielded questions on Islamist extremism, and escorted families to the engraved names of their loved ones on the memorial pools. This awkwardly juxtaposed to answering questions as to where the bathroom is or where the next train to Times Square is. A docent is a volunteer role, one that challenges my boundaries, but not so much that it's something I'd want to do as a career. Regardless, it has led to some of the most enriching and emotional moments of my post-college life. I've made a new circle of friends, and am putting my storytelling skills to use in a place where stories are all some people have to hold on to. I got involved in the memorial in 2011 after visiting on the opening day to the public. I wanted to give back to a city that had given me so much. As for what led me to that conclusion, that is what I'm here to talk to you about today. You're on your own path to success, as evidenced by your presence here in this room today. And today I want to take you on a brief yet storied journey of how I ended up where I am after I left this campus. I absolutely love my job, yet many of the defining moments of my life have had little to do with my paycheck, and I'm here to tell you that's okay. Especially in a field as constantly evolving as communications, your job is only one defining part of who you are and what you become. Beyond the office doors, so much has come to me for giving back to the people and the places that have given me so much. We start this journey here, right here on this stage. My first experience with Emmons came through the Journalism Workshop's J-Day program for middle school students. This was before the turn of the millennium. Through high school, I'd return each year for the awards and workshops, and when 2003 rolled around and a college choice loomed, I'd narrowed it down between IU and Ball State. Ball State's rap was a little different at the time, more seriously known as the party school, and despite the odd faces of people going, "Oh, Ball State," I selected the party school. I know now that my comfort was a direct result of having visited campus for J-Day, and I've never once regretted the decision to come here. You thought that's cute. The people in the room will also squirm at this now. You have your own college stories to tell, and I'm not here today to talk about mine in length. In short, if you're not involved in something outside the classroom right now, you're missing a very key part of the college experience. You're also not nearly as sexy on paper as the person sitting next to you who is involved. My DN ties landed me a job right out of school, working on the product that the DN then used to publish online. I graduated with my master's 6 years later and moved to New York a few days after my 25th birthday. I was and remain super active in the journalism and TCOM community, particularly the workshop's office in journalism. That program was and remains very close to me. It is the reason I am a Cardinal. I've never flinched at an opportunity to come back and give back to this school, and that leads me to a pivotal moment in my adult life as a result of having done so. In 2011, the workshop staff asked me to keynote the Spring J-Day convention. It was a bit of a dream and definitely an honor, and little did I know that day, this stage would again change my life. My J-Day speech focused on social media and the need for proper storytelling as long as conflict exists in this world, and while doing the polishing touches on my speech in flight back to Indiana, I modified the third example of conflict to reference the LGBT movement. The line, referencing gay marriage, implicitly but purposely outed myself as part of the punchline. I didn't think anything of it. It may have been the drink I was enjoying at 30,000 feet. Back to the stage, here I stood delivering the speech and then that line. It was greeted by a hesitant, then affirming roar of applause and whistles. By evening, I had received so many appreciative comments in passing on Twitter, on Facebook, about the speech and the nod to gay marriage and just about being gay. Of all of it, though, one message sticks with me even today. It still gives me chills. I've never had or been an Italian exchange student, but I definitely know what it feels like to hide. On the flight back to New York that weekend, I was upgraded to first class. I was sipping on a cocktail looking out the window at a beautiful day. It had been a great weekend with friends and family after J-Day. The speech itself had gone better than I expected. One Republic's Good Life came over my iPod, and every sense of the word, I felt on top of the world. Something plagued me, though. This can't be the pinnacle, not now, not yet. What's next, I asked myself. I loved New York, but I wasn't really doing much else but working and partying. The flight gave me pause to do what few of us ever take time to do, and that is really think. After some deep introspection, I arrived at 3 things I needed to do. First, the job. I loved it. I loved my coworkers, but it was growing repetitious. You should never feel bored or content in your job. Always feel stretched and challenged. It was time for a change. Second, my roots. I hadn't planted them in New York yet. I wasn't giving back to the thing from which I was taking so much. Back to middle school, I'd been a passionate volunteer, school, science centers, day camps. Not only had these opportunities made me well-rounded, they were also sources of amazing friendships. Lastly, myself. That student's note was on my mind. I'd made a difference in someone's life just for making a statement about who I was. A statement, for the longest time, I was ashamed of making. I had the ability to make change. What if 15-year-old me had seen 30-year-old me on stage? How would I have acted? I didn't want another student to ever have to go through what I did. That day invigorated and empowered me. Because I took the time to give back to these students in a 30-minute speech of Twitter jokes, I suddenly found myself charting a new course for my own life. I knew how I wanted to grow, now I had to figure out how. The next 3 months were full of new opportunity. For each of these challenges to myself, my career, volunteering, LGBT advocacy, allow me to briefly tell you how I did it. Ready for my next career change, I sought out a change and soon found it in a company I'd already been working for, or with rather, as a vendor. My job was awesome. My new job is even more awesome. I knew before I graduated I didn't want to be in a newsroom for my life, but I wanted to stay close to the business. My time at Ball State was able to satisfy my nerdiness, my passion for technology, my ability to communicate, my storytelling, all in this quest to be that guy who goes, hey, have you heard this? If you're struggling to see what careers await you, take stock in your fringe skill set, your hobbies, your interests. There's a crosshair for everyone there, and the people who are truly satisfied in their jobs are the ones who take a little bit more time to be introspective. As the initial negotiations for that job heated up at Sail Through, so was the political climate in New York State around gay marriage. 2011 went on to be the year that New York State passed marriage equality. In the weeks after that airplane epiphany, I took stock of the organizations in New York City and across the country that were advocating particularly for LGBT equality and awareness. The names I already knew: GLAAD, Trevor Project, NYC Pride. I visited each organization's site and signed up as a volunteer in less time than it took to have my dinner delivered. Trevor training would not take place until the end of the summer, and I participated in a few GLAAD events, but their frequency was rare. It was May, and Pride was about a month away. A flurry of emails started kicking around my inbox about upcoming volunteer sessions. I decided to go by myself to a session, perhaps in the interest of coaxing my small handful of friends to come along at a later date. I left the session that night with the phone numbers of a few people who are now very dear friends. I also had a hunch that this was exactly the group of people and the cause I had been looking for. I brought my friends back the following week. They were hooked. Make no mistake, Pride is a celebration, but it's a celebration for awareness. It is more than the march you see in the papers. It's a week of events throughout the city. The LGBT movement has made a lot of progress, but so much remains to be done here and abroad. We march for celebration for what we have in New York City, but we stand in solidarity with our friends in states like Indiana, where the debate carries on. It takes year-round planning from a very committed group of volunteers to make it happen, too. I was put into management positions before the end of my first Pride event. I became the second in charge to my successor in 2012, and my continued dedication led me to become the New York City Pride March Director for 2014. The last 4 Prides sit in my memory as an unrivaled mix of energy and emotion. I've announced Cher to 7,000 people in Manhattan. I've met Whoopi Goldberg, Susan Sarandon, Demi Lovato, Cyndi Lauper, Jonathan Groff. I've hugged Laverne Cox, and I've grinded with Lady Gaga. Although I guess now it's technically twerking if Dill Street's any indication from last night. There's a moment each year during the march where I stop and find myself peering down Fifth Avenue a mile into the distance. I don't see the usual clutter of yellow cabs. Instead, I see a rainbow of colors, people, and love. I think back to that note from that student. We're not alone, my friend. Back this spring, registration had been open a mere 3 weeks before my first opportunity to influence the greater conversation would happen as march director. The New York City St. Patrick's Day Parade refused to allow LGBT groups to march under their own respective banners. The mayor of New York refrained from marching this year as a result. GLAAD worked to get major sponsors to pull away from Boston's march as well. This upset Catholic League President Bill Donahue, who proceeded to announce to the world that he would seek to march in the 2014 New York City Pride March under a Straight is Great banner. Guess whose desk that fell on? He announced this on a right-wing radio show, and by evening we had news outlets requesting comment. I worked late into the evening with my colleagues to draft a statement. Of course we were going to let him march. We're all about acceptance. How we responded would set the stage for a debate, I knew. And as I drafted my quote over a glass of wine in my office, this line popped into my head. Straight is great, as long as there's no hate. The release went out shortly after midnight. The story was slowly picked up first by LGBT media and then all the way up to the Associated Press and the Times. I was driving up to Vermont for a company ski trip with my inbox flooding with more and more stories from friends. Late that afternoon, Donahue announced he would in fact not participate. My entire exchange with Donahue transpired over about 4 days, completely via email, and in a rather surreal moment of my life, I had an email from Gawker requesting to see the entire thread. What has become of my life when Gawker wants to see my email inbox? I declined. I wasn't stooping to his level for the sake of their page views. We had already made our point. I do commend their coverage, however, as the headline above my head indicates. Last week, St. Patrick's Day Parade organizers announced that a gay group would be allowed to participate for the first time in history. I can't take credit for that, but I can't help but think that pride helps somehow. You have a lot ahead of you. I know, large-scale volunteer operations may be a distant thought until your first or second job, and that's okay. You can start simple. You can start by giving back here to your soon-to-be alma mater. Not with your money, with your time, with your talents, then your money. Your job is important. It's almost everything right out of school, in fact. And know that over time, your job is only one factor to who you are and what you truly do. A degree from any CCIM department is empowering professionally, but it has even more wide-reaching effects when you're not using it just to get a paycheck. My stories today prove what happens when you give of yourself. In particular, I firmly believe a lot of my success is tied to giving back so much time and energy here to Ball State. It bothers me how many friends and acquaintances will comment on Facebook posts or in person. Oh, wow, how's campus? I haven't been back since I left. Well, yeah, of course, you haven't been back since you left, but never mind the whole thing. We're a community while we're here, and you're part of a greater one after you leave. You made a decision to come here, right? Own it. Own the school. Own your pride in it. I did, and because I did, I ended up on this stage giving a speech to some high school kids, a speech that influenced at least one of their lives and certainly changed mine. I hope that cycle again continues today. Congratulations. Good luck on the rest of the year.